unusually high tides of that turn. Now everyone wanted a fire lizard, and admitted that they must be tiny cousins to the great dragons of Pern. Piemur shivered with delighted terror. Thread had fallen over Fort Hold yesterday. They'd been rehearsing Master Domic's new saga about the search for Lesser, and how she had become weir-woman at Bendon just before the new pass of the Red Star. But Piemur had been much more aware of the silvery threads dropping through the skies above the tightly shuttered and sealed Harper Hall. He had imagined, as he always did during Threadfall, the graceful passages of the great dragons as their fiery breath charred thread before it could fall to the ground and devour anything living, before it could burrow into the ground and multiply. Even thinking of that phenomenon made Piemur quiver fearfully again. Before Master Robinton had discovered Menelly's talent at song-making, she had actually lived outside her hold, caring for the 9 fire lizards she had impressed from the rescued clutch. If only, thought Piemur with a sigh, he wasn't immured in the craft hall. If only he had a chance to search seashores and find his own clutch. Of course, as a mere apprentice, he'd have to give the eggs to his craftmaster, but surely, if he found a whole clutch, Master Robinton would let him keep one. The sudden raucous call of a fire lizard startled him, and he sat up in alarm. The sun was now streaming across the outer side of the Harper Hall rectangle. He had fallen asleep again. If Rocky was screaming, he was late to help feed. With deft movements he dressed, except for his boots, and thudded down the steps, emerging into the courtyard just as he heard the second, more urgent summons from a hungry Rocky. When he saw that Camo was only just trudging up the steps outside the kitchen, clutching his bowl of scraps, Piemur drew a sigh of relief. He wasn't all that late. He thrust his feet into his boots, stuffed the laces inside to save time, and clomped across the court just as Menelly came down the steps from the main hall. Rocky, Mimic, and Lazy whirled above Piemur's head, chittering hungrily at him to move faster. Piemur glanced up, looking for Beauty. Menelly had told him that when the little queen was close to mating time, she'd seem to be more golden than ever. She was now circling to land on Menelly's shoulder, but she seemed the same color as ever. "Camo feed pretties?" The kitchen drudge smiled brightly as Menelly and Piemur reached him. "Camo feed pretties." Menelly and Piemur spoke the customary reassurance in chorus, grinning at each other as they reached for handfuls of meat scraps. Rocky and Mimic took their accustomed perches on Piemur's shoulders, while Lazy clung with far from indolent strength to his left forearm. Once the fire lizard settled to the business of eating, Piemur glanced at Menelly, wondering if she had heard the drum message. She looked more awake than she usually did at this hour, and slightly detached from her immediate task. Of course, she might just be thinking up a new song, but writing tunes was not Menelly's only duty in the Harper Hall. As they fed the fire lizards, the rest of the hall began to stir. The drudges in the kitchen were roused to breakfast efforts by Sylvina and Abuna. In the junior and senior dormitories, occasional shouts punctuated random noises, and shutters on the journeymen's quarters were being opened to let in the fresh morning air. Once the fire lizards had wheeled up for their morning stretch of wings, Piemur, Menelly, and Camo separated. Camo, with a push from Menelly, was sent back to the kitchen. Then she and Piemur went up the main steps of the Harper Hall to the dining room. Piemur's first class that morning was chorus.